Jesus Never Existed by Kenneth Humphreys, audiobook version. Chapter 7, 4th section. Trajan conquers the East. Wars and rumours of wars. Mark 13:7. Early in the 2nd century, Emperor Trajan, like a latter-day Alexander, had electrified the whole Greek world by a major campaign against the Parthians. Elevated to the purple in 98 AD, Trajan had already conquered Dacia, 101 to 106, and had annexed Nabatea, an Arab province to the east and south of Judea, before turning his attention to the east in 114. Trajan had several reasons for making war in Asia: a driven ego, plans for the assimilation of Armenia, a desire to free Rome's Asian trade from dependence on Persian goodwill, and avenging the ignominious defeat of Crassus and the Syrian legions a century before. But the invasion placed a gigantic strain on the Roman state. From the first, the Jews viewed the campaign with horror. Many of their brethren were trading partners, living a prosperous existence within the Parthian Empire. One estimate of the number of Jews in Mesopotamia at this time is 1 million. Cantor, The Sacred Chain, page 61. Palestinian Jews saw Rome's protagonist as their ally, a land of refuge, not an enemy. However, a success for Rome threatened financial ruin to Jewish merchants and Arab exporters, who, as middlemen, controlled Rome's international trade with India and the mysterious land of silk. And many Jews, despite the destruction of the temple, clung to the old hope for a warrior Messiah, destined to liberate Jews from Rome. An extension of Roman dominions was not what they had in mind. Quite the reverse. Rome's preoccupation on the Eastern Front became a new opportunity for rebellion. Hadrian confronted by the Jews. In the period before the campaign, Trajan had posted his old tutor, Pliny the Younger, to the governorship of Bithynia and Pontus, northern Turkey, a strategically important province. From here, Pliny sent letters complaining of the stubborn and obstinate Christ followers, almost certainly Jews, who threatened public order with their morbid superstition. Perceiving no threat, Trajan famously urged a lenient approach. But further south, the threat from the Jews and their sects was seen differently. Hadrian, a member of Trajan's entourage for 20 years, was posted to Antioch as the Syrian governor and military legate. His task, to organize and equip the army for the impending Asian war. To meet the huge expense, Hadrian raised new taxes on the eastern cities and levied landowners for the cost of troops passing through their estates. Though acceptable to the Greeks, the war was for hell's civilization after all. The taxes incensed the already seething Jews. In this racially mixed city, Hadrian saw at first hand the resistance the Jews maintained against the majesty of Rome, and he was no friend of Jewish troublemakers. The profound consequences of this confrontation of the most pro-Hellenic of men with Jewish fanatics no one could possibly have imagined. Parthia, fully aware of the impending assault, sent her agents across the frontier with funds for her most reliable fifth columnists, the Jewish zealots. As Trajan swept south with his army from Armenia, the Jews broke into open rebellion throughout the Eastern Empire. Rebellion and suppression. The years 115-117 found Rome facing enemies across an immense field of battle. The Persians, in alliance with the Armenians, counter-attacked. And everywhere from newly conquered Mesopotamia to Egypt, Rome was forced to divert troops to suppressing revolt by the Jews. A Jewish Messiah, King Lucius, was proclaimed at Cyrene in modern Libya. Judea was convulsed by a widespread uprising, and the grain supply from Egypt to the front was interrupted by rebels. In Cyprus, rebels forced Greek and Roman citizens to fight each other in gladiatorial combat. Hadrian was assigned the task of pacifying the islands and adjacent provinces. As a man haunted by religion, he made offerings to the gods, consulted oracles, and summoned Persian magi, wise men from the east. Within 18 months, Hadrian had re-established order in Syria and Cyprus. Trajan's leading general, Lucius Quietus, suppressed Judea and Cyrene. After an unsuccessful siege of Hatra in the heart of the desert, which cost many thousands of Roman lives, Trajan himself successfully pressed on with the war, capturing the Parthian capital of Ctesiphon in 116 and reaching the Persian Gulf itself. In the words of Edward Gibbon, Trajan, quote, enjoyed the honour of being the first, as he was the last, of the Roman generals who ever navigated that remote sea. The Roman conquest of Mesopotamia brought nearly all Jews under Roman dominion for the first time. But in August of 117, the conquering hero Trajan died while returning from the front. His energetic and brilliant successor, Hadrian, in command of the legions of Syria, was proclaimed emperor in Antioch. Hadrian inherited the throne of the largest empire the world had seen. He was greeted by his favoured Hellenes as restorer and enricher of the world, and by the Jews with apprehension. More realistic than his predecessor, he consolidated rather than extended the frontiers and immediately abandoned the province of Mesopotamia. One of his first acts as emperor in 118 was to promote the pacifier of the Jews of Egypt, Quintus Marcus Turbo, to the key governorship of Pannonia and Dacia. What happened to Egyptian Jewry after 118 AD? Quote, the crushing of this widespread Jewish sedition marked the demise of that flourishing Jewish centre for centuries to come. A bloodbath of immense proportions did indeed occur. Oded Irshai, The Illustrated History of the Jewish People, page 61. Decimated by Roman troops deployed in the Jewish quarters, with their urban and religious organisation shattered, remnants of Egyptian Jewry metamorphosed into embryonic Christians. Quote, in the eyes of the local Greeks, Christianity was just another brand of Judaism. Irshai. Notable among them was a young man, he would have been about 18 at the time of the insurrection, studying in the very city of Alexandria and witness to the carnage, Valentinus. Another was Basilides. Following in the tradition of synthesis and syncretism of long-standing in Alexandria, e.g. Philo a generation earlier, these proto-Christian theorists, Valentinus and Basilides, competed against each other, had their own cult followings, and produced their own gospels. And then, the Gospel of Mark. It is intriguing to note that two other proto-Christian theoreticians, Ignatius and Saturninus, had been in Antioch at the same time as Hadrian. And lo and behold, a revised gospel was to subsequently appear, the Gospel of Matthew. Hadrian's original choice of successor was Lucius Commodus, the pacifier of Judea, though in the event Lucius died before Hadrian. Hadrian moved his court to Alexandria. The Jews of Jerusalem sent a delegation to him, led by the aged priest Akiba, but to little avail. Hadrian despised the Jews for their insularity and arrogant claims for a single concept of the divine. Their treachery had hardened his contempt. For 20 years, there would be hostility between the enlightened Roman monarch and the zealots of Jehovah, with consequences beyond imagination.